morning, Scotland. Good morning, social media land. I hope you are well. It is Tuesday, the 17th of June, 2025. Power is a dangerous thing when it forgets its purpose. Scotland's independence movement wasn't built to win election. It wasn't built to protect institutions or preserve careers. It was built to deliver a nation, a free one. And somewhere along the road, somewhere between polling targets and media management and manifesto calculations, the engine that once roared with purpose has started to idle in place. The SNP is still the largest force in Scottish politics. It still holds the machinery of government and commands the trust of many voters. But what once made it powerful wasn't just numbers. It was its mission. It was its fire. And too many now feel that the fire has been doused in strategy meetings and repackaged into slogans and stored away for a more convenient season. This moment feels familiar because every great liberation movement reaches this point, when the people begin to outpace the party, when those at the top grow cautious, when those below grow restless, and when the cause begins to drift. Not because it's wrong, but because it is waiting on those too afraid to lead it. Across the world, across time, others have faced the same crossroads. They make their mistakes, and they also left us blueprints to learn from them. Scotland doesn't need party strategy. It needs a national strategy. And to understand that, we first need to remember how movements actually win. Before we speak of strategy, we must speak of struggle, because the path Scotland walks today of resistance, of sovereignty and self-determination has been walked before, and not just by our ancestors, but by movements across the world who faced giants and raised their people and won. We do not stand alone. We stand on the shoulders of those who dared to imagine freedom not just as a dream, but as a plan. And we're going to talk about some of those people just now. Antonio Gramsci, the rebel with a pen. He was born into poverty in Sardinia, Italy in 1891, crippled from childhood, imprisoned by Mussolini and denied medical care until his death. But he never stopped writing. From his jail cell, he crafted a revolutionary idea that the real battle wasn't just on the streets or in parliaments, it was in the minds of the people. Gramsci believed that culture, education, language, religion, and art, the building blocks of daily life, were the first battlegrounds of liberation. You don't win a country, he said, until you win its story. That belief cost him his freedom, but it never took his fight. Then we have Frantz Fanon, who was born in 1925 in the Caribbean island of Martinique, a French colony where the language was French and the people were treated lesser. He became a psychiatrist treating trauma in French soldiers and colonial subjects. What he saw broke him and then built him into a revolutionary. Fanon joined the Algerian resistance against the French colonial rule. He believed that the colonised must not only break the chains of empire, but also the chains in their minds. Freedom was not just about law or territory. It was about dignity, memory, and recognition. He wrote not for academics, but for the people in the streets. He died at just aged 36, still fighting for a free Africa. In 1919, a group of Irish MPs elected to the British Parliament just didn't show up in London. Instead, they met in Dublin and formed their own parliament, the first Dáil Éireann. They called it the Provisional Government of the Irish Republic. No permission, no negotiation, just a declaration. Ireland is free because we say it is. These weren't radicals looking for a riot. They were elected officials backed by a grassroots revolution. While Britain tried to ignore them, they built their own systems, their own courts, their own taxes, their own diplomatic missions to America and the world. And when Westminster refused to listen, Ireland acted anyway. We could learn from that. Gene Sharp never fired a gun, never ran for office, and never led a protest. But he taught the world how to topple regimes. Born in Ohio in 1928, he spent his life studying how people win freedom without violence. His book, From Dictatorship to Democracy, became a blueprint for resistant movements from Serbia to Egypt. Sharp proved that the power doesn't belong to governments, it belongs to the people who allow these governments to function. Stop cooperating, he said, and you stop tyranny. His methods were used by students, workers, villagers, ordinary people doing extraordinary things. He was banned in multiple countries, which meant he was really doing something right. In our history, we have our own incredible revolutionary voice. In 1320, Scottish nobles wrote a letter to the Pope, but it wasn't about the king, it was about us. It declared that the Scottish people were sovereign, that their rulers served only with their consent, and that no external power, not England, not Rome, could dictate their future. It was bold, it was defiant, and it was clear. It is not for glory, nor riches, nor honours that we fight, but for freedom alone, which no honest man gives up, but with life itself. This wasn't just a letter, it was a doctrine, one that placed Scotland at the forefront of democratic thinking, centuries before it took hold elsewhere. It said that kings could fall, that nations could rise from the people, and that freedom was a right, not a gift. These ideas live on in prison cells and colonial towns, in rebel parliaments and quiet study halls, in Scottish history and the global story of liberation. And now it lives within us, because the path to independence has been walked before. We just need to take our place in that story and walk it with purpose. Every successful independence movement is built on three essential foundations: politics, international legitimacy, and the people. The three pillars are not a slogan, they're a strategy, and they are the foundation for Scottish sovereignty. And unless the SNP supports them, it risks becoming an obstacle instead of a vehicle. We're going to talk about them now. Our political pillar, Holyrood, must be more than a devolved parliament. It must be a national instrument of self-determination. That means building a pro-Scottish majority, not just in government, but across the opposition benches too. A parliament that draws its strength from its people, not from permission. That was the first message from the Dáil in Ireland. They didn't wait to be granted sovereignty. They just stood up and exercised it. That same mindset must now define Holyrood. The SNP must drop the idea that it owns independence. It must welcome the presence of Alba, Greens, the ISP, pro-Indy independence, every political party that gets a seat in Holyrood. A pro-Scottish opposition is not a threat. It is a blessing. The Irish didn't fear debate amongst allies. They built a parliament of shared purpose. So must we. It also means embracing a 2026 strategy where the SNP dominates the constituencies, but list votes are used tactically to bring in additional pro-independence voices. More parties, more pressure, more democracy, creating a pro-Scottish parliament, both government and opposition, is vital. We have the tools to do this. Our voting system allows this. I've discussed this so many times in other videos, so I'm not going to go into it here. The pro-Scottish government and opposition can be fighting like cat and dog for policy in Holyrood, holding each other to account, creating the best legislation for Scotland from a pro-Scottish stance. But see outside Holyrood, they must march arm in arm for the cause. If they do not, they are a microcosm of Westminster, the Timu version of union politics. In the words of Gene Sharp, power flows not from institutions, but from consent. Holyrood's authority and legitimacy must reflect the full range of the Scottish people's voices. That means embracing a parliament that represents the movement, not just the party. We are not here to make kings. We are here to build a country. International legitimacy is also vital, and Scotland's case for independence cannot live only in domestic papers. It must live on the world stage too. In 1320, the Declaration of Arbroath didn't beg for reform. It asserted sovereignty directly to the Pope. It was an international appeal, not to a domestic court, but to a global conscience. Today, the world still listens when nations speak clearly. Right now, grassroots initiatives like Liberation Scotland and Mike Fenwick's Sovereign Scot Declaration are already in front of the United Nations. And yet, the SNP, the largest pro-independence party, barely acknowledges them. That's not just a tactical mistake, it's a diplomatic failure. Frantz Fanon warned us, colonised peoples must assert their rights to exist and do it loudly, unapologetically and globally. We cannot wait to be recognised after independence. Recognition must be part of the path to independence. Scotland must act like a sovereign nation in waiting, not a devolved administration asking for approval. That means supporting the work of international recognition, and we should be doing that every single day by supporting Mike Fenwick and Liberation Scotland. We must be building alliances with small nations and unrecognised states, framing independence as a decolonisation issue, not just a democratic one. Sovereignty must be claimed politically, publicly and globally. The world is watching. What story are we telling it? The most important pillar, the most important aspect of any revolution is the people, the grassroots movement. This is where it lives, the movement, the fire, the soul of independence. Antonio Gramsci taught us that culture is the first battlefield, that if you do not win the hearts and minds of the people through community, education, conversation and belief, you will never win in Parliament. The war of position comes first, and it's already being fought across Scotland, but not by HQ. The SNP was born of the people, but it has grown distant from them. Local strategy is smothered. Activists are managed, not empowered. Community voices are silenced in favour of campaign lines crafted by consultants. This must end. The movement is already doing the work. Across the country, in hubs and organisations, in marches and online with digital activists. This is exactly what Gene Sharp described. Distributed, non-hierarchical power. Power that cannot be dismantled because it doesn't depend on one centre of control. And this is what Fanon knew too. That true revolution comes from when ordinary people take ownership of their future, not when they wait for the elites to act on their behalf. The grassroots doesn't need permission. It needs momentum. We've walked in the footsteps of Gramsci, Fanon, Sharp, the Irish rebels, and the signatories of Arbroath. Every one of them teaches us the same truth, that freedom is never granted. It is taken, claimed, built from the ground up, and made real by those who never stop. Scotland already has the tools, a parliament that can be transformed into a national instrument, a growing presence at the international table, and a grassroots movement that is already on the march, educating, organising, rallying, disrupting. We do not need permission to act like a nation. We do not need another promise of a future campaign. And we certainly don't need to be told to wait for a better time. What we need is the courage to believe in our own power, to act like the sovereign people the Declaration of Arbroath spoke of, to build a Holyrood where government and opposition fight for Scotland, then march side by side for the cause. SNP must remember where it came from, and it must decide what it serves: a career, a party, or a people. Because this movement is no longer asking. The cause is king, the pillars are built, and the people are already moving. I've read quite a lot of the writings of those people that we were just discussing, and I believe that these revolutionaries and revolutionary thinkers are very inspiring for what we're embarking on. We've kind of stagnated. We've kind of looked inwards when we should be looking outwards. I firmly believe it doesn't matter if the person standing next to you doesn't believe in the same ideology as you. It could be Alba as a political thing. It could be Liberation Scot, and you might disagree with the way that they're doing it. It doesn't matter, because they still believe in the cause. They still want independence. We can thrash out our ideologically different perceptions once we're independent, but we need to win that first. So this weekend, when you're marching from Stirling Bridge to Bannockburn Field with the all under one banner people, just hug somebody that might be a different faction, speak to them, be cool. They all believe in the same things that you do. Otherwise, they wouldn't be there. They wouldn't be marching with you. Tomorrow we'll go in and have a wee look again at these revolutionary writers and consider what they might be saying to us if they were part of our movement. I hope you can join us then. Thank you for watching.